Red Creek Valley seemed like a quiet, ordinary place. I've learned two things in my life. No place is truly quiet, and nowhere is really ordinary.
In the realm of indie gaming, there are only a few experiences as captivating as The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. Developed by the Polish The Astronauts, this atmospheric, narrative-driven adventure immerses you in a world full of mystery, suspense, and psychological depth, where reality and the supernatural intertwine in an unsettling dance. A haunting journey through a small, seemingly idyllic town in Wisconsin where dark secrets lurk beneath the surface, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter is a fantastic example in gaming for storytelling and immersion. This game is a narrative experience that does not hold your hand, is what the game greets you with at the very beginning, and this factual statement comes with triumphs and shortcomings alike, but more on that later. You begin the game as a detective Paul Prospero, who reads a letter from a boy called Ethan Carter asking for help. Intrigued, you travel to Red Creek Valley and find yourself on a railway within a picturesque yet eerie forest. From here on out, you're on your own. No tutorial, no instructions. You have to figure out what happened to this place and ultimately to Ethan Carter all by yourself. Since it is a narrative-driven game, there is no combat. You walk or run around in its mostly open world to discover clues and interact with various objects or other elements within its environment. And, most importantly, you have the ability to see through the past and piece together what transpired before you got there. You'll find these fragmented stories scattered throughout the world of the game as you explore it, and that's where the puzzles come in. They're not that difficult to solve by design, as they're mostly used as a medium for figuring out what happened and putting together a narrative to push the story forward. That said, your ability to visualize past occurrences will only work after you figure out what happened in that area, retrieve objects that were used at the time, and quote-unquote fix the scene before finally piecing together the chronological order of events. It's definitely a very satisfying way of uncovering what happened, especially as you begin guessing the events based on the still ghosts of the past. In the end, you're rewarded with playing out the cutscene that you yourself put together.
The hell's going on? Where's Ethan?
The one who sleeps must not sleep. Your Uncle Chad is dead. Gross. Ethan.
There are also other sections where the stories come in, as you explore the surroundings and listen to the old dialogue that transitioned in those rooms. All these will eventually fit together as you get closer to uncovering what happened to Ethan. What sells this entire narrative is its gorgeous world and atmosphere. Some games can get away with serviceable work in the graphics department, but The Vanishing of Ethan Carter definitely benefits from its visual prowess. Since there's no in-game HUD at all, you walk around soaking the developer's incredible work on the eerie forests, rocky mountains, shining sun, crumbling buildings, ritualistic mines, and other hauntingly beautiful vistas and landscapes. My entire playthrough was on a large 4K TV, and with nothing on screen to ruin my immersion, the game's atmosphere pulled me in from the start and never let go. This immersion is further compounded with an equally fantastic sound design. Although you know that there is no combat, the incredible detail and little creaking sounds and the smooth transitions of its great selection of unsettling music sells the danger always lurking somewhere, and who knows, you just might encounter one at any moment. To be frank, I personally am not a fan of horror games in general, mostly because they use typical jump scares or loud noises for cheap thrills. I cannot comment whether or not you will be scared playing this game, but I will tell you that your experience won't be a cheap one. It's one of those few games that gets it just right in my opinion, and it focuses on the narrative primarily rather than trying to get you to jump off your seat. There are also other stunning segments that tread the surreal apart from Red Creek Valley. Despite looking very different than the game's world, your audiovisual experience is further cemented by these excellently crafted spectacles. For a game released almost a decade ago, it still holds up really well. All that said, it's unfortunately not all sunshines and rainbows. So far, I've mentioned all of the triumphs of the first sentence that read, "This game is a narrative experience that does not hold your hand." The minimal gamification, I'll call it, helps with the immersion for sure, as it feels more like an interactive adventure movie and makes you forget, to an extent, that you're playing a game. This is indeed the case until it isn't. Not explaining any game mechanics can and does cause a big waste of time initially, and this subsequently can lead to frustration, and I'll do my best to explain this without spoiling anything. At the very beginning of the game, you will run into a few traps that you can interact with. When I was prompted with Sense, I pressed and held to what looked like a fragment of the past. Since nothing happens from here on out, it's very natural to think, okay, it'll probably make more sense as I keep exploring. And fair enough, I run into another trap and the seemingly same shape appeared again. I think the same and move on. I then missed the rest of the traps because some of them are very secluded and far away from the main path and begin proceeding towards the bridge. The game then goes ahead and plays another part of Paul's monologue, which made me think that I was progressing normally when, in fact, I've missed an entire story. This isn't the only problem as well. The same issue happened with touch. I don't know what touch meant, and when interacted with, it just showed a tiny bubble. So I look around, find a few clues, and think that I may return back here once I find out more and continue further down. I then go on to explore large areas, buildings, find other clues, and move on even further down the line, all while still hearing more of Paul's monologue. Of course, this continues until I hit a dead end. I then run around in circles trying to figure out what I've missed. It turns out that I played 30 minutes incorrectly and I had to start all over if I didn't want to ruin the story. Why did the game let me progress so much when I missed the very first puzzle? Well, it's the dev's way of letting you discover the story the way you want because it doesn't have to be linear. Again, it's fine when it works, but it's not so nice when the player gets completely confused. I didn't know if the puzzles were simple or elaborate, so my assumption that I'll come back to the scene after I've seemingly exhausted my options in the near vicinity was a very natural decision. One final issue that further exacerbates the aforementioned is the fact that the game's visuals are so equally realistic amongst its assets that you don't know what you're supposed to interact with. It's not that obvious. For example, in this particular section, I ensured that I ran around and looked at every corner to see if there's any interaction in this area, especially after I had to restart and figure out the game's mechanics. Fair enough, I run around the whole thing looking for buttons or other things to interact with and find nothing. But guess what? Unlike the others which look identical, this one particular valve is interactable. In hindsight, the cue here was the light beside it and the running turbine, but it's such an easy detail to miss in a very large world. And trust me, there are even less obvious ones out there. So when you do miss a detail like this, you then run around in other areas trying to figure out what you missed elsewhere when what you needed to interact with in the first place was here all along. I knew I wasn't crazy when I looked this up online, as the developers themselves slightly tweaked a certain section of the game towards the end in the subsequent Redux version, and this was to make it easier for players to revisit certain areas and figure out things that they've missed. It was good to confirm that it wasn't my room temperature IQ that was the problem, but the game's design that can sometimes lead to us being lost in what to explore. So yeah, without spoiling any further, I will leave you with this. Whenever you see any touch, don't move too far away, as you can solve the entire scene with what's available in close proximity. Furthermore, whenever you see jumbled words like this, it's the game's way of helping you figure out which general direction the object in question is currently located. Now that you know about these though, I promise that your experience will be smoother than mine. Although it's mentioned that it takes roughly 5 hours to complete the game, that wasn't my experience. Even including the complete waste of time in the beginning where I had to restart the game from scratch, it took me about 3 hours or so to finish it. You'll also find walkthroughs on YouTube that end the game in roughly an hour and a half, so your mileage may vary of course. The Vanishing of Ethan Carter is a captivating and immersive adventure that stands out as a testament to the power of storytelling in gaming. Its stunning visuals, unsettling atmosphere, and thought-provoking narrative combine to create a short but memorable experience. I definitely recommend you folks to pick this one up when it goes on sale, as it's a great little game to have in your library when you have a few hours to spare. In short, while its relatively short length may leave you craving for more, the quality of the journey makes it a must-play for fans of psychological mysteries. So prepare to be transported to a world where nothing is as it seems, and every step forward unravels the enigma of Ethan Carter's disappearance. Thank you for watching everyone, and be sure to subscribe to Gamenoob for more game reviews and commentaries. I appreciate the support. Stay happy, be good to each other, and see you all in the next one.